She walked in like any other shopper, her presence quiet yet commanding. The boutique's pristine white marble floor reflected her soft footsteps as her heels clicked delicately, breaking the tranquil hum of classical music. With oversized sunglasses concealing her eyes and a simple cream coat draped over her frame, she exuded an air of mystery that caught the attention of every employee. To most, she would appear understated, just another visitor wandering into the exclusive boutique. But to Helena, the sharp-eyed manager stationed at the entrance, something about her seemed out of place. The boutique was a haven for the elite, where every visitor's wealth and status were silently measured. Helena's instincts, honed over years of managing the store, flagged this woman as someone who didn't belong. "Excuse me, ma'am," Helena said, stepping forward with a polished smile that barely masked her suspicion. "This is a private boutique, and we operate by appointment only." The woman paused, lowering her sunglasses just enough to reveal piercing blue eyes that held a quiet confidence. Without a word, she slid the glasses back into place and turned on her heel, walking out as gracefully as she had entered. Little did Helena know, the events she had just set into motion would soon upend her carefully curated world and leave everyone stunned. The boutique was more than just a store. It was a statement. Nestled on the iconic Rodeo Drive, its gleaming glass facade stood out even among its high-end neighbors. Pristine white marble framed the entrance, its surface polished to a mirror-like shine, reflecting the sun's rays and the occasional glance of a passing luxury car. The doors opened with a soft whoosh, ushering patrons into a world of refined elegance. Inside, the atmosphere was a carefully orchestrated symphony of sophistication. Rows of meticulously arranged designer handbags lined the walls, their logos shimmering under strategically placed spotlights. Mannequins clad in couture stood as silent sentinels, their tailored ensembles a testament to craftsmanship that only the wealthiest could afford. A faint hint of jasmine lingered in the air, blending seamlessly with the gentle hum of classical music emanating from invisible speakers. The boutique's exclusivity wasn't merely implied, it was enforced. Each rack held garments with price tags that could rival the cost of a small car. Jewelry cases displayed diamonds and gemstones that sparkled under intense lighting, their brilliance unmatched. Sales associates dressed in sleek black uniforms moved silently, their every gesture calculated to exude professionalism. Helena, the manager, was the gatekeeper of this realm. She ran a tight ship, ensuring the boutique remained untouched by anything less than perfection. No fingerprints marred the glass displays, no stray threads escaped the seams of the designer clothing, and no idle chatter disrupted the boutique's serene atmosphere. To Helena, this wasn't just a job, it was a responsibility. Her mantra was simple, yet unwavering. Exclusivity must be protected at all costs. Every patron was silently evaluated, their attire, demeanor, and even their posture scrutinized. Those who didn't meet her exacting standards were gently but firmly reminded of the boutique's by-appointment-only policy. On this particular day, the boutique hummed with its usual controlled elegance. Helena stood by the entrance, her sharp gaze scanning the room for any imperfection. The sunlight streaming through the glass doors illuminated her tailored suit, a reflection of her authority. To her, this was another ordinary day of maintaining the boutique's lofty reputation. But as the mysterious woman walked in, her quiet confidence challenging the status quo, the flawless veneer of the boutique began to crack. Helena, the manager. With a tailored navy blue pantsuit that exuded authority and a sleek precision-cut bob framing her sharp features, Helena was the epitome of control. Her piercing gaze could scan a room in seconds, identifying potential disruptions before they could unfold. For Helena, the boutique wasn't just a workplace, it was her domain, a meticulously curated world of exclusivity and perfection. Every detail within the store bore her imprint. From the arrangement of designer handbags to the precise lighting angles on the jewelry displays, nothing escaped her attention. Helena prided herself on her ability to maintain the boutique's air of unattainable luxury, ensuring that only those who truly belonged would cross its threshold. Her demeanor was firm, her tone always professional, but there was an unspoken coldness to her approach. Exclusivity isn't just about price. It's about image, she often reminded her staff, a mantra that dictated her every decision. Helena saw herself as the gatekeeper of this world, a role she wore with pride and a tinge of arrogance. Melania Trump. The woman who stepped through the boutique's doors carried herself with a quiet grace that turned heads without trying. Tall and statuesque, her presence was magnetic, yet understated. Dressed in a simple cream coat that skimmed her frame elegantly and oversized sunglasses that concealed her eyes, she moved with the assurance of someone accustomed to commanding attention without seeking it. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floor as she lingered briefly at the jewelry case, her fingers brushing over a silk scarf. There was an air of effortless sophistication about her, as if she had stepped out of a high society painting. Yet beneath her reserved demeanor, there was an undeniable strength, a quiet confidence that suggested she was far more than she appeared to be. Though Helena dismissed her as out of place, there was something about the woman that unsettled her. Perhaps it was the calm way she responded to Helena's pointed remarks, or the faint trace of recognition in her blue eyes when she lowered her sunglasses. Whatever it was, Helena chose to ignore it. But for everyone else in the boutique, the woman's understated elegance and commanding aura left a lingering impression. Little did they know, her presence would soon shatter Helena's carefully controlled world. The glass doors of the boutique opened with a soft whoosh, admitting a woman whose presence seemed at odds with the carefully curated world she was stepping into. Dressed in an understated cream coat and carrying a modest handbag, she moved gracefully but without the overt displays of wealth that usually marked the boutique's clientele. Helena, stationed near the entrance with her usual air of authority, caught sight of the woman immediately. Her sharp gaze scanned the outfit, the lack of evident designer logos, the simplicity of the accessories. To Helena, it was clear. This was someone who didn't belong. The boutique was a sanctuary for the elite, a space where status was as much a requirement as an appointment. Helena's instincts, honed by years of filtering out the unworthy, kicked in. She smoothed her tailored suit and approached the woman with a practiced smile that barely masked her suspicion. "Good afternoon, ma'am," Helena began, her tone polite but firm. "I'm afraid this is a private boutique. We operate strictly by appointment." The woman turned slightly, lowering her oversized sunglasses to reveal piercing blue eyes that seemed to assess Helena as much as she was being assessed. There was no anger, no visible offense, just a calm, composed confidence that made Helena's grip on control falter for a brief moment. "I understand," the woman replied, her voice measured and unflustered. "I was simply admiring your collection. I'll only be a moment." Helena's practiced smile stiffened. She couldn't afford to let the rules bend, not even for a moment. Her reputation, and that of the boutique, depended on it. "I'm sorry," Helena said, her voice now sharper. "But we have a strict by-appointment-only policy. If you'd like, I can provide you with the details to schedule a visit at a later time." For a moment, the woman said nothing. Her expression remained calm, almost unreadable. Then, without another word, she slid her sunglasses back into place and turned to leave. The sound of her heels clicking against the marble floor echoed in the otherwise quiet boutique, a rhythm that seemed to linger long after the doors had closed behind her. Helena exhaled quietly, a faint sense of satisfaction settling in. She had done her job, protected the exclusivity of the boutique, maintained its unyielding standards. Yet, as she watched the woman disappear into the bustling street outside, an inexplicable unease crept into her thoughts. There had been something in the woman's demeanor, a quiet intensity that refused to be dismissed. Her poise, her calm response to Helena's curt dismissal, it all felt out of place, as though Helena had just misjudged something, or someone, far beyond her comprehension. As Helena returned to her post by the entrance, the moment lingered in her mind. The boutique hummed on as usual, its pristine walls and curated displays seemingly untouched by the brief encounter. But for Helena, A subtle crack had formed in her tightly controlled world, a crack she couldn't quite ignore. Little did she know, the woman she had so confidently dismissed wasn't just anyone. And the quiet defiance in her exit wasn't an end. It was only the beginning of an unfolding story that would soon challenge everything Helena believed about her role, her values, and her carefully constructed world of exclusivity. Later that evening, as Helena locked up the boutique and walked to her car, the day's events still lingered in her mind. She couldn't quite shake the calm confidence of the mysterious woman, or the subtle defiance in her exit. It was rare for anyone to challenge Helena's authority, even in the most composed manner. Yet, she dismissed the thoughts as unnecessary distractions and told herself she had done what was best for the brand. The boutique was her sanctuary, and it thrived on exclusivity. Rules were rules. But by the following morning, whispers had begun to ripple through the boutique staff. Helena arrived early, as usual, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor, but the atmosphere felt different. It wasn't the serene hum of luxury she was used to. Instead, there was a buzz, a faint energy of curiosity and tension. Sophia, one of the newer associates, approached Helena hesitantly. "Did you hear about the woman from yesterday?" she asked, her voice low but tinged with excitement. Helena raised an eyebrow, her sharp gaze narrowing slightly. "What about her?" Sophia glanced around before leaning in closer. "One of the customers this morning said it was Melania Trump." The name hit Helena like a cold wave. She froze for a moment, her hand gripping the edge of the counter. "Melania Trump?" she repeated, her tone skeptical but laced with unease. Sophia nodded earnestly. "They showed me a picture on their phone. It was definitely her." Helena's mind raced. Could it be true? Had she, in her rigid adherence to protocol, just dismissed one of the most recognizable and influential women in the world? She tried to maintain her composure, but the knot in her stomach tightened with every passing second. "It doesn't matter who she was," Helena said briskly, masking her uncertainty with a firm tone. "Rules are rules. We can't let just anyone wander in without an appointment." But deep down, Helena knew this wasn't just anyone. By midday, the whispers among staff had grown louder, and customers began to join in. While perusing handbags, one patron remarked, "She looks so elegant. I can't believe someone would treat her like that." Another chimed in, "I heard she left without saying a word, so classy, but you know she was furious." Helena overheard these conversations, each one chipping away at her carefully constructed confidence. The boutique's reputation had always been Helena's top priority, and now it was at risk. That evening, as she scrolled through her phone at home, the gnawing unease turned into full-blown anxiety. Social media had picked up the story. A vague but damning post described how a high-end boutique manager had dismissed a prominent public figure, hinting strongly at Melania Trump without naming the store outright. The comments were a flurry of speculation. Some users tagged brands, demanding clarification. Others claimed to know which store it was, adding fuel to the growing fire. Helena's chest tightened as she read the words "classless behavior" and "elitist attitude" scattered throughout the thread. "This will blow over," she muttered to herself, tossing her phone aside. But her confidence felt shaky, and sleep didn't come easily that night. The next morning brought no reprieve. A local news outlet had picked up the story, running a short segment speculating on the boutique's identity. While they didn't confirm it outright, the coverage was enough to ignite more chatter among customers and staff. By the time Helena arrived at the boutique, she was met with subtle glances and hushed whispers that made her skin crawl. One customer, holding a latte and wearing oversized sunglasses, leaned into her friend and whispered loudly enough for Helena to hear, "This is the place, isn't it?" Helena tried to maintain her usual air of control, but the cracks in her composure were becoming harder to hide. She felt the weight of every glance, every hushed conversation. The boutique, once her sanctuary, now felt like a cage, its pristine walls closing in around her. Still, She clung to her belief that Melania wouldn't return. Someone as prominent as her wouldn't bother revisiting the scene of an insult. It was over, Helena told herself. She just needed to weather the storm. But the storm was far from over. Helena's worst fears materialized when she stepped into her office to find an email from the boutique's corporate headquarters. The subject line read, "Urgent. Addressing recent incident." Her heart sank as she clicked on the message. It was a directive to provide a full account of what had happened, along with a reminder of the company's commitment to exceptional customer service and discretion. The implication was clear. Helena's actions had not gone unnoticed, and the boutique's reputation was now under scrutiny at the highest levels. By the end of the day, Helena's unease had transformed into a full-blown crisis of confidence. The once pristine world she had worked so hard to maintain was unraveling before her eyes, and the fallout was only just beginning. Little did she know the situation was about to escalate in ways she couldn't have imagined. Helena sat in her office, the door firmly shut, her usually immaculate desk cluttered with scattered papers and her untouched coffee. The boutique hummed quietly outside, but Helena's world felt anything but calm. Her mind replayed the encounter with the mysterious woman, Melania Trump, over and over again. The polished responses she had always prided herself on now seemed brittle and insincere against the weight of what she had done. Helena prided herself on her judgment. She had built her career by discerning who belonged in the boutique's exclusive realm and who didn't. Yet now, that judgment felt hollow. The realization that she had dismissed someone of Melania's stature, someone who epitomized the very elegance and poise the boutique claimed to champion, left a bitter taste. She reached for her phone, scrolling through the social media posts that had haunted her since the story broke. Every comment about arrogance and elitism felt like a personal indictment. Helena had always believed she was upholding the boutique's values, but now those values seemed distorted. Was she protecting the brand, or was she protecting her own sense of superiority? The corporate email from the previous day loomed large in her mind. It wasn't just her reputation on the line, it was the boutique's, and for the first time in her career, Helena felt something she had rarely allowed herself to feel: shame. She had spent years perfecting the boutique's image, ensuring every detail reflected an air of unattainable luxury. But in her pursuit of exclusivity, she had forgotten the essence of true luxury: grace, humility, and respect. Helena's thoughts turned to the way Melania had handled the situation. Despite being dismissed so curtly, she had remained composed, dignified, and polite. There had been no outburst, no condescension, just a quiet confidence that now left Helena feeling small. Melania's response had been a mirror, reflecting Helena's own flaws with stark clarity. As the day wore on, Helena found herself noticing things she had previously ignored. A customer hesitated at the jewelry case, their attire not quite as polished as usual. Normally, Helena would have dismissed them as out of place, but now she paused. Was her judgment truly about protecting the boutique, or was it about feeding her own biases? For the first time, Helena began to question the very principles she had built her career on. Her role as the gatekeeper of the boutique no longer felt like a badge of honor, but a burden of misplaced priorities. That evening, as she closed up the store, Helena lingered at the jewelry case. She caught her reflection in the glass, and the woman staring back at her looked different. The sharp confidence in her eyes had softened, replaced by something more uncertain, but perhaps more genuine. Helena knew she couldn't undo what had been done, but she could choose how to move forward. The boutique wasn't just a collection of designer goods and polished surfaces. It was a space where experiences were created, where customers should feel valued regardless of their outward appearances. The next morning, Helena arrived at the boutique earlier than usual. The air was crisp and the quiet hum of the city had yet to wake fully. She walked the store floor with a renewed perspective, noticing details she had once overlooked: the warmth of the sunlight streaming through the glass doors, the way the scent of jasmine filled the air. She called a meeting with her staff, gathering them in the lounge. The employees exchanged curious glances, sensing something different about her. "I owe all of you an apology," Helena began, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "Yesterday, I let my assumptions cloud my judgment. I treated someone unfairly, and in doing so, I let all of you down. That's not the kind of leader I want to be, and it's not the kind of example I want to set." The room was silent, the weight of her words sinking in. For Helena, admitting her fault was a humbling experience, but it was also liberating. She continued, "We have an opportunity to learn from this. Respect and kindness shouldn't depend on who someone is, or who we think they are." Her staff nodded, some smiling faintly, and Helena felt a sense of relief she hadn't experienced in days. It was a small step, but it was a step toward change, a step toward becoming the kind of leader and person she now aspired to be. In that moment, Helena realized that true luxury wasn't about exclusivity or appearances. It was about creating an environment where everyone felt valued and respected, a lesson she vowed never to forget. The boutique was bustling with activity that Friday afternoon, the soft hum of classical music underscoring the chatter of well-dressed patrons and the quiet exchanges of the staff. Sunlight streamed through the glass doors, casting a warm glow over the pristine marble floor. Helena stood near the jewelry case, her usual position of authority, though her nerves betrayed her. The past few days had been a whirlwind of whispers, speculations, and silent judgment. The glass doors swung open with a deliberate force, and the boutique fell silent. All eyes turned toward the entrance, where Melania Trump stood, poised and commanding. She was no longer the understated figure Helena had dismissed days earlier. Now she wore a sleek black dress that perfectly complemented her statuesque frame, her diamond earrings catching the light with every movement. Behind her, an entourage followed. A publicist, a personal assistant, and 2 impeccably dressed security personnel. Outside, the flashing lights of paparazzi cameras lit up the boutique's facade, their frenzy barely contained as they captured every moment. The quiet murmur of the boutique gave way to a stunned hush. Helena felt her throat tighten and her palms grow clammy. The meticulously constructed confidence she relied on began to crumble under Melania's unyielding presence. Melania took a step forward, her heels clicking against the marble in a rhythmic cadence that seemed to echo louder than usual. She glanced around the boutique, her expression calm but unreadable, as though she were taking stock of the space and the people within it. Her gaze eventually landed on Helena, who stood frozen, her usual air of control replaced by visible discomfort. "Good afternoon," Melania said, her voice calm but firm, carrying a weight that silenced the room. "I would like to look around now. Is that allowed?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Helena struggled to find her voice, the power dynamics in the room having shifted entirely. "Of course, ma'am," she managed, her words stiff and brittle. She stepped aside, gesturing awkwardly for Melania to proceed. Melania moved through the boutique with an effortless grace, pausing occasionally to examine the displays. Her entourage followed closely, their movements deliberate but unobtrusive. Helena, meanwhile, felt the weight of every customer's gaze, their whispers barely contained. "She's even more stunning in person," one customer murmured, their tone tinged with awe. "I can't believe she came back after what happened," said another. Helena's mind raced, the tension in the room pressing down on her like a heavy weight. She wanted to regain control, to assert herself as the manager of the boutique, but the moment was slipping further and further away from her grasp. Melania approached the jewelry case, her eyes scanning the glittering display before settling on an elaborate diamond necklace. She gestured toward it, and one of the sales associates, a junior employee named Clara, stepped forward hesitantly. "May I see this piece?" Melania asked, her tone polite but authoritative. Clara fumbled slightly as she retrieved the necklace, placing it delicately on the counter. "Of course, ma'am," she said, her voice shaking slightly under the pressure. Melania studied the necklace for a moment before glancing over her shoulder. "What do you think?" she asked, directing the question not to her publicist or assistant, but to Helena. The question caught Helena off guard. She stammered, struggling to find the right words. It's one of our finest pieces, she said finally, though her voice sounded hollow even to herself. Melania nodded thoughtfully before turning back to Clara. I'll take it, she said with a small smile, sliding a sleek black credit card across the counter. As Clara processed the transaction, Melania turned once more to Helena. Her expression remained calm, but her words carried an undeniable weight. It's important, don't you think, to treat everyone with respect, especially when you don't know who they are? The room fell silent, the statement slicing through the tension like a blade. Helena's cheeks flushed, and she lowered her gaze, unable to meet Melania's piercing eyes. Before leaving, Melania gestured to her publicist, who handed her an envelope. She held it out to Helena. This is for your staff, she said, a token of appreciation for their professionalism. Helena hesitated before taking the envelope, its unexpected weight surprising her. She glanced down, her hands trembling slightly as she held it. Melania offered a faint smile and turned toward the exit, her entourage falling into step behind her. As the glass doors closed behind them, the boutique remained silent, the gravity of what had just transpired hanging in the air. For Helena, the encounter was a lesson she would never forget. The woman she had dismissed so easily had not only returned, but had done so with grace, generosity, and an unshakable sense of dignity, qualities that Helena now realized were the true marks of exclusivity. Helena stood in the center of the boutique's small staff lounge the next morning, her usual composed demeanor replaced with a visible vulnerability. The team gathered around her, exchanging curious glances, sensing that this meeting wasn't about the routine updates they were accustomed to. Taking a deep breath, Helena began, her voice steady but laced with emotion. I owe all of you an apology, she said, looking each team member in the eye. Over the past few days, I've reflected on my actions, and I realize I failed, not just in how I handled a situation, but in the example I've set. The room remained silent as her words hung in the air. I let my assumptions cloud my judgment, she continued. And in doing so, I treated someone unfairly. That's not the kind of leader I want to be, and it's not the kind of environment I want for this boutique. Respect and kindness shouldn't depend on who someone is, or who we think they are. The staff nodded, some with faint smiles of encouragement. Helena could feel the tension beginning to ease, though the weight of her mistakes still pressed heavily on her shoulders. Holding up the envelope Melania had left the previous day, Helena's voice softened. Before she left, Melania Trump gave this to me. It's a gift, for all of you. A token of appreciation for the professionalism you displayed, even when I failed to do the same. She opened the envelope and revealed the check inside. The staff gasped softly as they saw the generous amount, more than enough to provide each of them with a significant bonus. She didn't just show grace in how she handled the situation, Helena said. She showed me what true elegance and leadership look like. It's not about exclusivity or control. It's about making people feel valued, regardless of who they are. The team exchanged looks of understanding, the tension replaced with a renewed sense of unity. As the staff returned to their duties, Helena felt a shift within herself. She walked the boutique floor with a new perspective, no longer seeing the customers as mere visitors, but as individuals with stories, worth, and dignity. For Helena, the lesson was clear. True luxury wasn't about the marble floors or sparkling displays. It was about fostering an environment of respect, humility, and grace, a standard she vowed to uphold from that day forward. At its heart, this story resonates because it explores themes that are universally understood and deeply human. The story highlights the importance of treating everyone with respect, no matter their outward appearance or perceived status. Helena's initial dismissal of Melania Trump stemmed from assumptions tied to exclusivity, but her journey reveals the flaws in this mindset. True humility is recognizing that every individual deserves dignity and kindness, whether or not they fit into preconceived notions. This lesson reminds us that grace and respect transcend wealth, titles, and appearances. Helena's transformation demonstrates the power of redemption. While her mistake could have tarnished her reputation and relationships, her willingness to reflect, apologize, and change paves the way for growth. This theme emphasizes that mistakes don't define us. What matters is how we choose to learn from them. Melania's composed and generous response acts as a catalyst for Helena's growth, showing that extending second chances can inspire change in others. The story also delves into the dangers of making assumptions. Helena's snap judgment about Melania based solely on her attire and lack of an appointment led to an embarrassing misstep. It's a cautionary tale about how quickly assumptions can lead us astray and how they often fail to account for the true character or value of others. The narrative challenges us to pause, consider, and approach people without prejudice, acknowledging their inherent worth. These themes, humility, second chances, and the dangers of judgment, are relatable to anyone who has ever felt misunderstood or misjudged. They remind us to approach life with an open mind and heart, fostering connections based on mutual respect and understanding. Through Helena's journey, the story inspires us to embrace growth, offer kindness, and lead with grace. Have you ever found yourself judging someone based on appearances or assumptions? This story is a powerful reminder that our first impressions often fall short of the truth. Take a moment to reflect on your own actions. How can you approach others with more kindness, humility, and respect? We all have moments where we misstep or make decisions that don't reflect our best selves. What matters is how we choose to learn and grow from those experiences. Like Helena, we can embrace second chances, reevaluate our biases, and strive to lead with grace in our daily lives. If this story resonated with you, take its lessons to heart and share them with others. Treat every person you meet as someone with a story worth hearing, a life worth respecting. Let kindness and understanding be the foundation of your interactions. For more inspiring narratives like this one, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Help us spread stories that uplift, challenge, and remind us of the values that truly matter. Together, we can build a community that celebrates growth, compassion, and the power of second chances. Thank you for being part of this journey.